Hey, you want to talk about title screens? Like most traditions in video game design, it started as a means to acquire more money from arcade goers. Title screens would be made to be super flashy and eye-catching, so you'd see them and think, oh, I want to spend my 3,000 quarters on this one. This was also true of game demos, the closely knit cousin of the title screen, a collection of gameplay moments intended to sell you on the game. But when converting over to home consoles, video game designers didn't really question these traditions at all, and they stuck around for quite a long time. However, while game demos have been going out of fashion since the Wii era, title screens are still very much in fashion. It would quite literally be impossible to create a comprehensive list of all video game title screens, so this will just be a much more lax exploration of some different categories of title screens, based more on feeling than any hard rules. So let's start at the simplest looking and easiest to do. These title screens are fully functional and perfectly adequate, though it's rare that one will ever blow you away.
And I'm giving it Super Smash Bros. Brawl out of Mario Paint.
Okay. Is that good?
What, are you wanting a fucking explanation?
No. The main focus and appeal of this style is just the logo of the game. Typically, you get the title taking up the top 3/4 of the screen with a usually nondescript background and a press blank to start prompt at the bottom. With such a range of possible backgrounds, it's really hard to say where the line for basic is, but I think if you can explain the background with just one word, it's probably basic. I don't know what this background's about.
I rate this stained glass window out of Super Smash Bros. Brawl.
Okay. My favorite of these words being sky or space, just because it amuses me that there's so many examples of that. It's gotta be one of my favorite uses of pattern recognition. Overall, these title screens are usually function over flair. There are cases where a basic background is a good decision. They are very effective at establishing low energy tones like calmness, unease, or mystery, and obviously some really good sound design can really help sell what you're going for. But if you want to go for something fun and exciting, you can spice things up with some wacky animations on the logo or some action-packed gameplay demo.
I'm giving this Lucario Wii Remote screen from Smash Bros. Brawl out of Smash Bros. Like when you select Lucario and he goes, your crispy ass Wii Remote speaker.
Though generally higher energy visuals require a higher amount of complexity. However, sometimes you have a super boring title screen followed by a main menu so incredible and striking and perfect that you forget that there was even a title screen before, so it's like, what's even the point of having that previous screen? I don't know. Maybe it would just feel weird to open straight into the main menu, regardless of how detailed it is, but there are some games that do that and they feel fine. Lots of modern games even skip the title screen the first time you boot up the game and just go straight into the opening cutscene. But if you feel like your game needs a title screen for the sake of pacing, then these are perfectly fine options, I suppose. All in all, basic background title screens serve a very clear purpose. It's just that that purpose is usually boring. Certainly not the worst objectively or anything. Oh no.
Gross.
Is this it?
Vomit.
No,
Ew,
that's not it.
Ew,
It can't be. It can't be it. But I will never complain about a title screen doing more than that. The focus has started to shift from just the logo onto the stuff behind it. This form of title screen is far more effective than a simple logo on a nondescript background, but it's still quite easy to implement. Sometimes you'll get a little extra flair or animation, but generally you just have one striking image and that's all. But just because it's one image doesn't mean these are lazy or bad title screens, obviously. Honestly, you could argue that this category requires the most amount of thought because you have to convey so much about your game with so little. But a single image can sell you on a game more than any amount of advertising. And in that way, these artistic title screens serve a very similar purpose to the old arcade title screens, where they act as an advertisement for the game. Obviously, it's in a completely different way. Arcade title screens just grabbed your attention with the express purpose that you then spend your money on the game after seeing the title screen, while these title screens are in a game you already bought. What do you think?
4 out of 10.
Oh.
Out of
Huh?
Mario Paint.
Oh. But they could still be spread around online to sell you on a game, or even just stick in your mind enough that you want to keep coming back to continue playing. Although, on top of harkening back to ye olde arcade days, these title screens are also incredibly effective at establishing a tone. The low energy tones that basic backgrounds were good at can be done even more effectively here. And since the logo isn't the only interesting thing anymore, you can almost entirely get rid of it just to sell that tone even more. But higher energy games still don't really go for artistic scenery as its title screen. Basic backgrounds were vague enough to be kind of versatile, but these types of title screens are much more specifically good at establishing a strong setting or story. If you want a title screen that's far better for your wacky fun action platformers, you'll want to try This is the most populated category and most clearly defined, but that's only because this is literally all title screens that focus on a character rather than a logo or background, which is a bit of a broad category. It's also a bit difficult to say what being focused on a character really means, or if it's even a useful category. Oh, he bumped into the... what? This dude, he can't get out. Help him. But it successfully accounted for all the title screens that wouldn't have a section otherwise, so it's fine. This section is notable for featuring nearly every Sonic game in existence.
Same rating as before, but oh, Lord, that's ugly.
And most Kirby games. Oh my god, this is a Sonic title screen. These title screens are generally going to sell you more on the character than the world, so it's obvious why more fun, mascot-based games would use them. Which is why it's interesting when a serious game uses this type of title screen. I wouldn't say that this guy on the title screen of Fallout is a particularly memorable or notable character design, but you can definitely see how this would immediately establish a lot of the tone of the world. Although it's the most infamous example of this type of situation that might just be the most interesting. FNAF 1, good at destroying the bitrate on YouTube videos. Typically, horror games sit comfortably in the artistic scene category. This was the case for a couple FNAF games, and this is the case for every other notable mascot horror game I could think of. But the first 3 FNAF games, plus Sister Location, have animatronics taking up one half of the title screen and then the title and menus taking up the other half. And what's weird is that I think this is really good. Like, it's really effective at setting up its tone, and it clearly establishes the threat that you're dealing with, which makes it weird that it's not more common in horror games. It's completely unlike the typical horror game title screen, but that's because it's instead exactly like most other PC game title screens. This style of having the menu tucked into one side of the screen so you can have interesting visuals everywhere else is most commonly done to show off a character on the other side, but some recent games have used that space for other types of visuals. And what's interesting to me is that this has been a staple of PC games since the prehistoric era, but has only recently been coming to console games. This is more of a menu thing, but console games have to have the menu be easily navigable by just pressing simple directions on a D-pad. But on PC, you have your cursor that can move and click anywhere, so you'd think that the menus on PC could have any wacky shape they want. But for some reason, the trend of having a small vertical list of menu options shoved off to the side of the screen started on the medium where you have to have a cursor to navigate with, while the medium where you can only press a couple directions is the one that got way more wild with menus.
I know one of these new Smash games have like god-awful menus.
Oh, no.
Fucking this one.
Get ready, bro. Ooh, yeah, baby.
Yeah, so this is the one with the garbage menuing, right?
Wrong. But I digress. And unfortunately, that's not the last notable aspect of character-focused title screens, because there's one series that has had such a... well, okay, it's not actually that notable. I just kind of gave Pokemon its own section because I felt like it. Obviously, Pokemon title screens are character-focused. Yo, Charmander!
And Squirtle? Squirtle.
Cute Squirtle.
Just gonna be Bulbasaur.
Oh my god.
For a long time, the title screens have featured the legendary Pokemon of the game doing something cool and or epic, and those have always been amazing title screens. On the DS, they took advantage of the dual screens to give the legendary a separate screen from the logo, but obviously going back to one screen wasn't a problem. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee have incredibly fun and cute title screens featuring Pokemon on them, so clearly Pokemon can still do this style of title screen, but there's a problem.
It's just a stadium.
Yeah.
The most recent Pokemon title screens didn't have the Pokemon.
After you beat the champion, it kind of changes so that your team is all lined up on the stadium, which is a neat idea.
The idea is neat, but if that's all it do, then that's kind of like...
They're not terrible, obviously. It's a great game, but it's...
Yep.
dog shit.
Okay, they're just not as fun and unique as before. They are perfectly good title screens, and I think showing off the unique personality of the games and regions, rather than the new mascot legendary, is a perfectly good direction to go. And maybe the problem isn't even with this new style of title screen, and instead is just a change in quality, because even the remakes that emulated that old style were...
I liked that the original was really ominous, and this doesn't strike me as ominous.
It was just a recreation of the original.
I'm angry!
That was really the main reason Pokemon was its own separate category. But I will say that Pokemon Legends Arceus does have a very cool title screen. It's reminiscent of Breath of the Wild, but instead of just promotional images that it cycles through, it's static shots of an actual place in-game. And it's not just any place, it's the place you last were when you saved the game. And if there's one style of title screen I absolutely adore, it's the kind of title screen that's basically just... It's the title right on the game. I will admit that this category and the artistic scene title screens have a lot of bleed over. Like, yeah, this is literally an area in the game, but it's also an artistically framed scene designed to establish a tone. However, this is where I remind you that this list is very much based on feeling. And these title screens have always had a distinctive feeling that I love. The earlier categories contain some of the greatest title screens in history, but any title screen that has a little bit of the game in it will always stand out to me. These range from, yeah, that's pretty good.
Those crisp edges, that clean off-white coloring.
Hey, there's actual white.
I was quoting the one scene from American Psycho.
Oh. You are.
A psycho?
Yeah?
Thanks. Did you mean it?
No.
Okay.
2, this one is incredible.
6 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
And most notably, this category includes nearly every single 2D Mario game in existence, and that's because those quite literally have a piece of the game in them, because it seamlessly acts as the gameplay demo at the same time. It's such a simple thing, but it's so good at establishing what a game is about and what tone you want.
I'll go with that one. This gets a Mario World out of Mario Paint.
Yeah. Mario is obviously going to make every title screen fun and energetic, but that doesn't mean that there aren't incredible title screens here that are calm. In fact, my absolute favorite has to be Animal Crossing. Like, all of them. Every Animal Crossing game. They all do the same idea, but that idea is amazing, because it not only shows you sweeping shots of a serene town, but it's your serene town. It shows you your town in the exact state that it is currently, and exactly what's currently happening. It's an incredible style of title screen that can't really be replicated in any other game. However, Kirby and the Forgotten Land got pretty close. This is similarly your exact town. This is your base of operations, and you get to see it grow as the game continues. And one of the coolest things I've ever seen is that once you press start, Kirby just plops down into this exact scene. Mario games may seamlessly transition from title screen to gameplay demo, but this one transitions from title screen to actual gameplay. And it also does something that any title screen can do, but is most common in this category. It changes as you go through the game. In the case of Kirby and Animal Crossing, the title screen changes because it's a reflection of an actual part of the game you directly impact as you play it, but other title screens accomplish a similar level of dynamics by just adjusting themselves as you progress through the game. And I think it's just so cool. Even though sometimes you might just play a game all in one sitting, so you won't even see that the title screen changes, it's still an incredibly cool detail that I've always appreciated. And overall, this style of title screen is absolutely my second favorite, because it's only outdone by title screens that are a game in themselves. This is the smallest category, with only a few games I could think of, and most of them are Mario. But if you know about these title screens, you know how amazing they are. Mario 64 slaps you in the face with its 3D-ness and gives you an incredibly fun way to mess around. It's 3D now.
Holy fucking shit.
This one's great, right?
Yes. I'm giving it Guardians of Gahul out of Super Mario Paint.
The DS remake took a similar approach by giving you an incredibly fun way to mess with the touchscreen. This one's great. You get to draw, and I like drawing.
I honestly think this one is cooler than the other.
You also like drawing, so...
I do like drawing.
We're both biased, but that is also just objectively cooler, clearly. And Mario Paint, let's take a look.
Yeah!
Starts out as just a basic logo, but you can click the letters to have different effects happen, including being able to actually draw, which is basically like playing the game itself on the title screen.
My silence was me being enamored with this.
Yeah,
I
this
love
one's
this
fun.
a lot.
This one's
This
real
is great.
It's such a fun idea that even the most simplistic bare-bones version of this concept in Stardew Valley is unexpectedly enjoyable. But what if you weren't just kind of able to play the game on the title screen? It's the game, and you play it? Because you can make the level, the whole point of it is they made a level where it outlines the logo, but it's still in the level and you just play.
That is pretty neat.
Anyway, Mario Maker's title screen is cheating, so it's disqualified because you just play the game. I can appreciate the breathtaking artistry behind some of the simpler title screens, but those that give you a taste of gameplay itself are always going to be the kings in my heart. But that obviously depends on what you think the purpose of a title screen even is. I can't necessarily say that title screens are your first impression of the game anymore, because as I said near the start, some games just skip the title screen entirely when you first boot up the game. But even before that, there have been games with cutscenes before the title screen. And before that, there's the game box and the disc, or the ads for the game, so yeah, title screens are not the first impression you have of a game. And they're not even necessarily the most important impression, but it's often your home, and it's what you associate strongest with the game, even if you don't really see it that often. And so I hope that we continue to have cool title screens forever. But if you make an insanely cool main menu and then just slap a separate screen that's just the logo on a black background right before it, then what are you even doing?